Hello, everybody. We are back for our sixth and final panel of the day. Uh, this panel is Getting the Most from Digital Peer Support. And with me for this panel are three of the most respected Facebook peer support group moderators and admins that I know. We've got Hank Reardon in the panel right below me. Uh, to my left on the screen is Seth Rosen, and then right below Seth is Shane Latero. And so before we get started, I do want to thank our sponsors. We've got our panel sponsor is Deer Haven Gardens, and our co-presenting sponsor is Ria Health. And it's thanks to our sponsors that we are able to offer all of this content to you for free. So, rousing applause for our sponsors. And if you get anything from these panels and it benefits you, and you are able, if you can donate to C3 Foundation, we will do everything we can to continue offering you great content like this. And we love your support. Thank you very much. Please use the chat function to ask questions, and we will get to as many of them as we can. Those of you who are familiar with the Facebook groups probably already know all three of these gentlemen. They have helped so many hundreds, dare I say thousands of people over the last few years. And they all bring something very unique to peer support moderating. So I'm going to let Hank go first. And so, Hank, just give us a little bit of your background and why you're so enthusiastic about peer support.
Well, thank you, Jenny, and it's great to be here with all of you. Beautiful day here in Minnesota. And I've been involved with TSM since February of 2018. Got involved quite mysteriously, I don't even know how, with a Facebook group, TSM support, and quickly it just became a very important part of my life, which continues to this very day. I just personally love the opportunity to interact with people from all around the world dealing with this very significant issue of alcohol use disorder. It is absolutely so rewarding to see people who have had major problems in their lives because of alcohol break free and go on to live really productive lives. And to be a part of that process is just absolutely amazing. So we love TSM support. Just really happy to have so much help from C3 Foundation, and Shane's just been absolutely amazing. And I've had some opportunity to interact with Seth in the past too, who's also amazing. And so many people that I can think of here that just absolutely, without their contribution, this would be so much more difficult and so much less enjoyable. So just absolutely grateful for TSM, absolutely grateful for TSM support. Can't say enough about C3. Claudia and Jenny are just absolutely amazing. And my goal is just that, within a generation or so, that alcohol use disorder is no longer an issue for the world. And I believe we're on the right track with TSM support, and TSM itself as a science is certainly driving this. So anyways, again, thanks for the opportunity to be on this panel.
Wonderful. Seth?
Okay. How did I get started? Well, I have a little bit of a history of moderating internet groups for other topics. And I'm also enthusiastic about the Sinclair Method. And so I got into this group called Your Choice, Your Recovery. And I guess I was posting there a lot. And the person that started the group decided to move on with her profession and turned the keys over to me. So I've been administrating that group for a while. We changed the name a few months ago, like maybe about 9 months ago, to A Cure for Alcohol Use Disorder, the Sinclair Method, to try and get into the search engines and things like that. But I'm enthusiastic about peer support because the Sinclair Method changed my life. And um, I want to make sure that it's available for people to learn about and to get through the early stages of doing this method.
Excellent. Shane?
Yeah, I can agree with both of those. I know I've had lots of experience working with Hank, and you're right about thousands of people. We've interacted with that many, definitely. I got into it and I love doing it because TSM completely and utterly changed my life. And I'm very, very grateful. And the passion and the fire in my life came back, and in large, that was completely due to TSM and getting into it, and just I wanted to give back to other people, to get it out there, to let people know that this is something that should be standard medical care. It's just one of those things. So that's why I got in.
Wonderful. So what is one of the most important pieces of advice you would give to anyone who is just starting the Sinclair Method and coming to our Facebook groups in relation to how they get the most information for themselves out of peer support?
So I definitely read the book. The Cure for Alcoholism by Roy Scapa is an absolute gem. I mean, it gives you the science, it gives you some examples of real life journeys with TSM. The science itself is amazing to read, I think, and with that gives you the confidence to actually pursue it. And obviously, there's some nice videos. One Little Pill that Claudia produced. Katie Lane has got some absolutely incredible stuff out there as well on YouTube. And so, reading the book, watching the videos, that just is a great foundation. And then obviously in TSM beginnings, it's really about getting the habit of being compliant. What does that mean? Why is it important to do it every single time? It's not something you can just kind of pick and choose. It's every single time for the rest of your life, and then obviously once you get into the habit of being compliant, tracking your weekly consumption. I mean, we know from basic psychology and performance that if you're measuring your results are going to improve. And so those are the three big things. And then obviously there's a lot of questions that come up for newbies. Acclimation is not an issue for most people, but for some, they either can't sleep or they sleep too much, or maybe they have some nausea issues. And we just want to help people get over those initial hurdles. I mean, most of the time they just take care of themselves, after several uses of the medication. But basically, reassurance is a really big part of the process. Reassurance and encouragement can really do a lot in the TSM journey. So those are the basic things that I would focus on personally. And then just remember, TSM, it's not an overnight solution. It works slowly, and then suddenly, boom, you get it and you're free. But don't think it's going to happen overnight. It does take time. How much time is really individual. As long as you're compliant, you're doing the things that we're talking about from a consumption tracking perspective, you'll get there eventually, and you'll be noticing helpful changes along the way. things that you used to do a lot of, you stop doing. If you were a blackout drinker, typically that's one of the first things that ends, early on in the process. So again, people, if they're observing the changes in their lives early on, they'll know it's working, even though they're still dealing with intense cravings at times. Again, TSM works slowly, and then suddenly, boom, you're there.
And I think I see you offering that information a lot. For those of you out there watching that haven't been involved in the Facebook peer support groups, Hank is probably one of the biggest TSM cheerleaders for other people that I have met in the last 7 years. Like there is no one who is so enthusiastic about helping people celebrate those goals and those achievements and staying on track as Hank is. So Seth, I'm not sure if you're aware of this, but the group that you admin primarily right now, the Cure for Alcoholism, alcohol use disorder, that was actually, to my knowledge, the first TSM-ish support group that was created on Facebook. And it originally started, again, I don't know if for professional reasons I can mention the woman's name who started it or not, but especially since she passed it on because she became a counselor. But she originally started it for anyone who was using medication, specifically naltrexone, but if you were using any type of medication-assisted treatment and or trying to do harm reduction, she started the group specifically for that. And so it quickly grew because a lot of people wanted something other than just abstinence-based. And then, as you mentioned, over time, it has come back to a more Sinclair Method centralized group. And you pretty much drove that that change from a general group back to its roots of the Sinclair Method. Can you tell me about
Guilty.
Yeah, can you tell me a little bit about the thought process for that?
Well, I joined that group with the idea that it was a Sinclair Method centric group because of the original graphic that they had up there. So it was probably my misplaced enthusiasm for the Sinclair Method that steered the group that way.
Well, I wouldn't call it misplaced.
Well, yeah, it was. I think that, I'm biased. I'm biased. I think it should be, the medication-assisted treatment that is most effective is the Sinclair Method. So everything else is just confusing the issue. And there's a lot of confusion out there, and I just wanted to clarify it. People are still talking about different other medications that don't block endorphins, and we're just trying to get the message out there to say Sinclair Method uses an opiate blocker. An hour after you take the opiate blocker, you can drink safely, and that's the Sinclair Method. It's not, well, maybe I'll take this other thing, and no. So
Well, and as that group grew, there was a spin-off that was specific to the Sinclair Method, which got large and over time had people at so many different stages of the Sinclair Method that Hank, you saw an enormous need for people who had been on the Sinclair Method for a while, but were in the groups basically just giving advice and not getting the kind of support that people who had been on it for a while needed. And so, Hank, you went and started TSM Breakthrough. So, talk a little bit about Breakthrough and why that was such an amazing and big need at the time, and why it's growing as well as it is right now.
So the idea with Breakthrough is essentially like a lot of things. It started from a place of kind of trouble. We at that group that you mentioned, we had a lot of veterans, people, again, who had been following the method compliantly for more than a year, who were quite frankly concerned that they were at extinction. And so, basically, Shane and I, especially, had been in touch with one another about the fact that, so TSM is dealing with a very basic biological and chemical need in the body, and that's an amazing tool, and it's why TSM is the only scientific cure for alcoholism. But alcohol use disorder is also, it's about a lifestyle. It's about habits. And so what we decided to do was to give veterans a place of their own, a place where they're not constantly being asked the same questions you typically get in the beginning stages of the TSM journey, like, when is the damn nausea end? Or when am I going to reach extinction? And those kinds of questions, and focus more on the kinds of things that a veteran really needs to do to crack the nut of AUD. So one thing that we've observed is that people who've been doing TSM for a while, they're like little birds that are ready to leave the nest, but there's no amount pushing them out.
Right.
So we try to help people. Look, you can do an alcohol-free day. Once you get one out of the way, you can do a bunch of them. And when you find that you can do a bunch of them, you're going to have an amazing experience. You're going to find that you can enjoy things with the endorphin bounce that are just going to be amazing. And you're going to be able to do a contrast in your mind about how alcohol makes you feel versus how you feel on these amazing days when the now's washed out and you're just enjoying whatever you're enjoying in life. And it becomes a very significant turning point for people when they get to that point where they can get to the enjoyment of life without alcohol. So we really drive alcohol-free days. We've started some additional programs like End at May, which is basically, May is just a slang term in the internet. It's like that first ice cream cone tastes really good. The second one, it's okay. Third one, not so good. So we encourage people to, look for a point in an extinction session where they could say, I've had enough, and recognize that they're going to want to keep drinking because it's a habit, but the need to stop is one of those things that we really try to encourage people. Look, if people can get to a point where they can stop at one or two and they can do that in a consistent fashion, they've probably achieved their goal, which is to be able to drink like a normal person drinks. So the whole thing with Breakthrough is really focusing on changing patterns. Like this thing with women and wine, we've kind of stumbled into this big, huge elephant in the room. A lot of our members are women. Most of our women members drink wine and they just love it, live for wine. And so, this is a huge real life laboratory for us. We're getting to find out all these problems, all these situations around the world and helping to come up with solutions for veterans. And one of the things we talk about with people in TSM is you got to get past whatever your favorite beverage is. For me, it was 2 shots of vodka club soda, ice with a splash of tonic, and I would do that twice on a work day and a lot more on the weekends, right? For Shane, it was whiskey. And, the night before I started TSM was the last time I drank vodka, and I'm not going back because vodka and I just don't get along, or we get along really well, depending on how you look at it, right? So the veteran group, TSM Breakthrough, is really about, trying to crack the nut. What's the code for the individual who have trouble so far getting to extinction? And what we find is that people who combine TSM with mindfulness, which is essentially bringing subconscious decision into the conscious mind, and then driving that conscious decision-making process with real habitual changes, can get them past their final hurdles so that they can get to the breakthrough. And we've had 20 people so far this year that have extinction declarations. Incredibly exciting. So Shane was really the big driver on the mindfulness conversation, and that led us into a thoughtful approach around this whole habit, and that has been, again, very, very helpful in getting some people who were kind of stuck in their TSM journey get unstuck. So again, very rewarding situation. And that's what's so cool about being on the front lines in this huge battle with AUD. I mean, we got people from Canada to New Zealand, from the UK, the United States, Poland, Namibia. I mean, it's the same problems all over the world with AUD, and we're finding solutions here. The book obviously is essential. You got to do the book, and the TSM is explaining the science. But we're finding for tough nuts to crack that it's also the mindfulness and the habits that complete the journey. And so again, that's what's so exciting about this whole process.
Well, in watching the success that TSM Breakthrough had and how quickly the group went from non-existent to a very active group with a growing following, that was actually a signal then back to us at C3 that maybe having giant groups with everyone at different phases, while still important, that shouldn't be the only set of groups. We had resisted both for logistical reasons of only being myself and Claudia, and also because, let's face it, Facebook and privacy are not two words that are often synonymous with each other. So we really weren't, we knew we were limited by Facebook's privacy settings in how much we could protect people's privacy online. So we kind of resisted that from a C3 Foundation organizational standpoint for a while. But we saw what you were doing over in Breakthrough, and we realized how important that was to have the segmented groups. And that's when we set up, it's not been quite a year since we started TSM Beginnings for people who are just starting or thinking about starting the Sinclair Method. And we've got our general TSM support for all levels of interest and our TSM support for friends and family. And as soon as we started those, we brought both Hank and Shane on immediately as admins. Shane, can you talk a little bit about how you approach the different segmented groups with information appropriate to each of those groups? Because having segmented groups, there's some overlap. And there's some things that are better off shared in one group as opposed to another.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, we'll go group by group. So when we started out, TSM Beginnings that we started to do, we typically have people there for up to about 3 months is where we like to see them. And, you're not so it's not that you have to stay in that, but the beginning part of it is the first, we say 3 months, 30 days for sure, is just about taking the medication. We like people to log their drinks and learn how to log their drinks, and not so they can obsess over any of this kind of stuff or worry about it, but over time they will see this going down, and they'll have something to look back at. And, they don't even have to look at the graph for the longest time. And then we want them to consider switching their drink to something that they don't love, so that they can start to see. And those are the only 3 things that we really push in that group. It's just so that people get off to a really good start. And then you get into the TSM Peer Support Option Saves Lives group, and which is just more of a general group. And we find that people from every walk are there. So we'll have people that will join that group who are just beginning, and they start to see some other ideas. And it's the problems that we started running into in the large, huge group is that you'd have everything all at once at the same time. So people that have been doing it for a long time, they would have to, if they hadn't caught a post or something like that, then they would have to dig back through it and try to find out what was going on, because there was hundreds of posts every day. And then there would, this Option Saves Lives group, people were able to look in this and say, okay, well, I'm kind of looking at this, and they can scroll down, see what people are generally thinking about this. But if they wanted to go back to the fundamentals, they're going to be there, but we're going to go a little bit beyond that. We don't necessarily go into all of the things that people are, that they're looking for in specifics. This is where we would get into with TSM Breakthrough, but they're going to find out methods. We'll post general ideas on mindfulness tips, and we'll have just a whole bunch of the things that people are going to use, how to make a plan, why is it important, and holding each other accountable, that type of thing. Then you get into something like TSM Breakthrough, where we get specific with people. So we'll start to ask a little bit more personal questions, and we'll say, hey, where are you? How many drinks do you have? And we'll really hone in on what it is that they are going through and what they're struggling with. And then, everybody at that point, it tends to go, it's not a one size fits all, because they may be struggling in one particular area, but they're having success in all of others. And then we have a TSM support for family and friends, and that one is a really good group. And I like that one because I've been able to interact with people that are on the other end of it. They're suffering from family members that that have AUD, and they don't know. Some of they just need a little bit of support, and I've been able to help some of them by them asking questions, because they're starting to think things that are common, like, is this ever going to get better? And they don't realize that, like a lot of people, they're just not aware that this is going to take up to like 6 to 12 months on average. So we get into that, and they start to learn these other things, and we can give them general information. We can even get them to try to help their family members to join. Some of them definitely benefit from peer support as well. So that's a little bit of a breakdown of our groups.
All right, before we get too much farther on, because I want to make sure that we make time for this, and people are always asking. So Hank, I would love for you to talk a bit about 5 and 2 and how you came up with the idea and why this has been so helpful to so many people at various stages along the Sinclair Method. It's something that, to my knowledge, you completely developed this on your own. I mean, maybe you had help, but this was not at all from C3 Foundation. But it has helped so many people. So please talk a bit about 5 and 2.
So the basic premise here that I'd like to kind of refer back to is, what I want people to do. And what we talk about, Shane and I talk about, especially in these groups, is you got to get to a place where you're actually working an extinction session. What I don't want people to do is get home from work, pop a pill, and then sit on the couch for the next 4 hours and drink alcohol and watch TV. Because that's not a mindfulness process. And really, if we want this journey to go quickly, we're going to have to work on it. So basically, it all started with just trying to push people to do what they're capable of doing after a while of doing TSM, which is alcohol-free days. And then it evolved into more structure, which became 5 and 2 with 2SD. Now, so what 5 and 2 is basically in a week, any 2 days that you want are extinction session days with a 2 standard drink maximum. And then 5 days in that week are alcohol free. And my thought is, if you can do 5 and 2 with 2SD for several weeks in a row, it's one of those incredible litmus tests, like a 30-day alcohol-free period, which is easy to do. That, you know, it tells you where you're at, which is you're probably near extinction. Extinction being just kind of by definition an absence of cravings. So again, anybody who can just do 5 and 2 at the drop of a hat and stop at 2SD, well, number one, that's amazing. But again, they're probably at extinction. So the idea here is just simply put some structure into your extinction sessions, treat them like work. So have a plan every week about what days you're going to do TSM. Have a goal to start your TSM session after dinner. All of us who have AUD or had AUD drank as much as we could before we had dinner so we could maximize the buzz. And we really want people, again, to do the opposite of that, which is to eat after a full meal. It's much easier to kill cravings after a full meal. And again, so 5 and 2 with 2SD is just about a structure. You know, again, recently we've been talking about the fact that, you know, it doesn't necessarily matter what variation of this you begin. It could be, you know, 7 and 0, which would be 7 days of drinking in a week with a 4 beer maximum per session. But the key would be to obviously, over a period of time, try to reduce the number of standard drinks per session, try to increase the number of alcohol-free days per week. And again, 5 and 2 is really an endpoint to get us to a place where people can actually drink like normal people can drink. So my personal battle with AUD, I was a binge drinker. So alcohol-free days were not a problem for me until recent years. I would party Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and go alcohol-free Sunday through Wednesday or Sunday through Thursday. But I would never, ever drink unless I could have at least 4. So the idea of stopping at 2 was very foreign to me. I did it. I went out with a buddy once for a beer and we stopped at 2 and I was so frustrated. I was like, what the hell? We don't stop at 2. and then it was like kind of those shocking moments for me. It's like, oh my God, a normal person should stop at 2 and you never stop at 2. So, you know, I referenced this earlier, but I mean, again, we're on the front lines here of TSM and AUD, global phenomena. And so we're just learning stuff every month that we can actually apply. So I don't know where it came from. I'm really glad we have it. I thank God for the opportunity to share the opportunity with others. And man, if it helps, I'm just really happy, really, really, really happy.
I can tell you where it came from because it did definitely come from Hank, and he's definitely been pushing it, and it's really helped us. So.
Thanks, Shane.
So, Seth, haven't heard from you in a while. So, again, you have the challenge of running a group that had a time period where it was about more than just the Sinclair method. And so you have a very wide variety of people who are members of your group in particular who have different ideas of what the best recovery form is, and varying ideas, and not all of those have come back to TSM centric yet, in spite of your efforts. So what challenges do you face in a larger, more diverse group of people when it comes to running peer support?
I guess probably getting people to be more active in the group, because it's been quiet a lot lately, which is kind of weird because of everybody being at home now. But it's, I mean, I'm trying to think of anything that's come up recently that we've had to talk about. Yeah, I don't know.
So we've had a couple references to baclofen. Does that come up in your group, Seth?
No, things have been pretty quiet, like I said. I guess it has come up, and I might have even mentioned it. But yeah, it's difficult because I've heard of baclofen being talked about in passing with TSM. In other words, some people use it in addition to naltrexone because it has this ability to lower the intake of alcohol. But
well, I think that baclofen is not the only one that happens with, because I know for certain that there's at least one that I can specifically think of, and I believe there's more than a handful of the TSM providers who will they will prescribe additional medications alongside TSM because people have diverse needs. There are some people who are prescribed Camperol because they have withdrawal symptoms. There are some that are prescribed gabapentin in addition to TSM. There are some that are prescribed baclofen. And so, I mean, we've got about 5 minutes left. So I think what that probably leads into is, how do you deal with, or I should say, how do you suggest to people who are members of peer support groups to handle and process the information when one person is prescribed more than just TSM, yet it doesn't mean that they're not doing TSM. They're still doing TSM, but TSM plus something else. And how do you help people not be confused? Because especially new people will say, oh, wait, is that supposed to be part of TSM as well? And so it gets a little bit confusing to people when one person has had their doctor prescribe them something else in addition. So how do you tend to handle those?
I just explain that these additional medicines can help with people that are having a difficult time with just naltrexone, and I didn't realize it myself until later. And I thought back to it, I was prescribed gabapentin for something else, and I was taking gabapentin while I was doing TSM. And I think that's part of the reason why it only took me 6 months, but I'm not sure.
Right.
So I don't talk about gabapentin. because I'm not sure about it. I'm not sure about whether it helped me do it in 6 months versus a year.
So I find that, to that same question, we do see some people that come through and they do get other medications, and generally it's the people that we see that are trying other medications are because they're struggling with TSM, with simply just naltrexone. And it usually takes a good amount of time for them to figure that out, because you won't really know until you think you should be kind of around the extinction period, somewhere in that 6 to 12 month window, and then they'll start to think, okay, well, we'll narrow it down, and then they may go for other medications and stuff like that.
It just really hasn't come up too much. I mean, if you just look at the numbers, TSM is amazingly successful. And look, we live in a culture where, people, want quick fixes. And I guess one of the things we just try to really push is it's not a quick fix. It took years, maybe decades to get to where you are with your alcohol use disorder. I mean, I've been drinking since I was 16. I'm over 50. So, I mean, I speak from experience here. And I also know from experience that, it just takes work. So, again, the message that we try to send is, look, TSM works. We've got the data. We know that it works. You just got to give it time to work. But you got to work yourself. You got to switch. If vodka is your thing, you need to drop vodka. I know Shane gave up whiskey for his extinction run, but now can enjoy it in moderation. Fine. I won't try that with vodka myself. I mean, charting. Again, if you don't know what's going on with your numbers, you're making a mistake. Trying to work programs like Stop at May, begin at 7 p.m. after dinner, running 5 and 2 with alcohol-free days and working extinction sessions. These things work. We don't really feel like we need to try to cheerlead other medications when we know these things are working. And basically, why do you want to add more toxicity to the situation with more medications is my thought. But look, have that conversation with your doctor. If your doctor really understands your situation, understands your needs, and feels something else is worthwhile, then obviously you got to pursue that. But basically, there's no getting past the fact that for most of us, it just takes work. What we want to try to do is provide structure about how that work should look, encouragement when they hit a rough patch. If they fall down, help them get back up again. We know these people better than their spouses do. As far as their alcohol use disorder, I'm looking at the back of my hand. So we are great friends. They can come to our group. They can tell us, hey, I wasn't compliant last night. I really regret it. And they're not going to get shamed or abused. They can explain to us things that we can understand that, again, not even their spouse will really understand because their spouse probably doesn't have AUD. So it's a real loving, warm, comfortable place for people to come. And I guess just, again, back to the basic question, why mess with something that really works is my thought. But at the same time, you got to work the program, and it's more than just TSM for most people. It's about making other kinds of important mindful and habit sorts of shifts.
Definitely, I agree with that. I see that medication issue in conjunction is a last resort for people. And it's something that they try if they absolutely have not had any success, and it's been a long time for them to do it. It's not something that we run up against very often. I just wanted to add that for peer support, when you're coming to get it and why you should get it is simply put, it's a place where you can go find people that will make you all of a sudden understand that you're not alone in this. That a lot of people think the same way as you do, and they've had similar experiences as you have, and they're able to understand you in a way that not everybody on the planet, not everybody develops it. We're a small subset of groups of people that have alcohol use disorder. And that's why you'd want to join a peer support group.
All right, I think that is a great note to end on. Thank you, gentlemen. I am so glad that not only are you here, but you guys are helping so many people every single day, day in, day out. You're not getting paid for any of that. That's all just your way of giving back and helping so many other people find the help that they need. I want to once again thank our sponsors, our panel sponsor, Deerhaven Gardens Recovery, and our co-presenting sponsor for the conference, RIA Health. It is because of these sponsors that all of this is free. If you missed any part of our conference, all of the pieces will be available. We'll start breaking them down into individual files beginning next week, and then we will also have everything moved over to our YouTube channel shortly after that. If you found this beneficial, then we would love it if you would toss a donation our way. We are a public charity, and we're supported almost entirely off of private individual donations. So thank you for watching. Thank you to our panelists, and we are going to take a short break, and then we will come back in about 15 minutes with a conference wrap-up. Thank you.
Thanks, Jenny.
Thanks, Jenny.
Thank you.